people dead, including a 5-year-old girl.
And this all comes just days after Mayor Brandon Johnson rolled out his new summer safety plan. Madeline Rivera is live in Washington with the details. Hi, Maddie.
Good morning, Carly and Todd. Chicago police say that 5-year-old girl, Rain Ware, was just sitting in the car when the shooting happened early Sunday morning. A 24-year-old man believed to be her father was also shot. No one is in custody, and police are investigating the motive in this incident. Rain's mother is also pleading the city to take action as she mourns the loss of her daughter.
Another year, another Memorial Day weekend, and of course, obviously in the city of Chicago, more people killed unnecessarily, including a 5-year-old little girl. Now, we're going to be talking about a lot of this over the course of this video, exactly why it is that the situation in Chicago continues to get worse and worse and worse. I know this is not a video about the migrant crisis, which is normally where I do most of my content when it comes to big cities. But of course, we got to talk about crime. And of course, I've told you guys before that we are going to be talking more about crime in the near future and how the media gets it wrong and how the media loves to manipulate people. But once again, we're here saying the exact same thing. Why in the world are so many shootings occurring in the city of Chicago? Especially when it comes to days like, oh, I don't know, Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July weekend. And of course, they're going to come back here and they're going to tell you that crime is actually down. But we'll be discussing some of that over the course of this video right here as well. But speaking of that incident there was actually a lot more that happened outside of a little girl getting killed, which, by the way, is obviously pretty daggone sad. Very sad. But as you guys are about to see, obviously more did happen in the city of Chicago, especially when it came to the topic of shootings. Let's watch.
Continuing to follow breaking news from overnight, Chicago police end up shooting 2 people and one of them is dead. Joni's live to explain what happened. Joni?
Good morning. We just received the Chicago police statement on this. It indicates that they had to act because they were witnessing a stabbing in progress. Some police officers were on routine patrol in the 15th district. They say they saw one man attacking another. They shot the attacker, and now there's an investigation. Officers assigned to the Area 4 Priority Response Team were in the 300 block of South Cicero at 11:10 last night. They say they saw a male attempting to stab a male in the street. They ordered the offender to drop the weapon, tried to de-escalate the situation, but say the offender continued to attack. Officers discharged their weapons, striking the offender and the man who was being stabbed. They say they rendered aid to both men. The offender was transported to Mount Sinai Hospital. The offender died. The victim is in critical condition at Stroger Hospital, and there was a heavy police presence at the scene for several hours. 2 officers were taken to the hospital for observation. All those involved will be on administrative leave for at least 30 days, and now the Civilian Office of Police Accountability is investigating. Reporting live at police headquarters, I'm Joni Lum.
Okay, and trust me, there are more news reports to come, but here's the thing about the city of Chicago. Right now, at this moment in time, as I'm recording this video on Tuesday afternoon, and of course it will be out on Wednesday, the topic of Chicago and crime is something that kind of seems pretty daggone normal at this moment in time, almost like it's been normalized. And of course, we got to hear people on the left side of the aisle scream and holler, or I would actually just say the neoliberal establishment scream and holler that guns are the problem. Of course, gun control is what's needed. Even though the city of Chicago has probably the most stringent, or I would say the most strict, gun laws in the nation of any actual city at this moment in time. Of course, somebody may have actually leapfrogged them, but obviously it's not curbing the gun crime. It's obviously the culture, which is actually what the hell is going on here, which, by the way, will come up more and more and more on this channel because, for the most part, it is a culture war channel. We're just venturing more and more and more into media criticisms. But, of course, anytime something like this happens, what do they always do? They blame the guns, okay? That is what the hell they do. Not mentioning that the current mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, has gone out of his way to get rid of ShotSpotter technology, which I'll further explain a little bit later on in this video. And, of course, he's not getting rid of it fully until after the Democratic National Convention happens this year. Funny how it is that they're going to leave that in place until then, but once all the old white donors and crap, once they leave, then they're just going to go ahead and get rid of the ShotSpotter technology. Very, very odd how they actually do this type of stuff. A lot of hypocrisy. And, of course, you'll see later on in this video that Brandon Johnson has came out and he's actually blamed the previous mayoral administrations for what the hell is going on. And my response to that is maybe you should look at the actual culture, and while it is that Lori Lightfoot and Rahm Emanuel are not any better, You might want to try changing some of the laws, but of course they got this new radical idea of sending out kids to take care of these problems. Youth outreach, stuff like that. And I'm not fully against that, but at the same time, though, you need to look at the neighborhood that you're in. Either way, though, reports like what I'm about to show you now exist for a reason because of very, very bad leadership and, of course, obviously very, very bad culture. And I'm not saying this right here to rant and rave about the city of Chicago. I'm just simply saying that obviously there is a serious problem here that does, in fact, need to be addressed. But speaking of that 5-year-old little girl, let's get back to that, look more into that story, and then we'll continue on going forward with the rest of this video explaining why this right here is such a big deal.
Another deadly holiday weekend for Chicago, with dozens shot across the city since Saturday.
Let's go to WGN's Brona Tumulty. She's live at police headquarters now with more. Brona?
Good evening. Amongst those killed in those shootings, a little 5-year-old girl on the city's west side, but there have been more than 30 other gunshot victims as well.
Difficult to handle. It's difficult for our responding officers. That's somebody's child. Brother, sister, cousin.
8th District Commander Brian Sprain is talking about the death of 5-year-old Rian Ware, identified by the medical examiner as the little girl shot and killed early Sunday morning on the city's west side.
As a district commander and as a police officer, it really hits home.
She was sitting in a parked car at 3:30 in the morning on South Campbell Avenue when a bullet struck her.
It's absolutely tragic and heartbreaking. And as a father of 3 daughters, it breaks my heart that we continue to see this narrative play out in our city.
It was a drive-by, and of course, more people got killed over the weekend itself. I had a friend of mine, guy I served with. I say rest in peace because he's no longer with us. He died a little over a year ago. Who was CPD? He was CPD for a good amount of time, and I used to have conversations with him, especially the previous few years before he passed. And of course, I'm not going to mention the nature or anything, how it happened. It wasn't on the job because he had actually sustained a really, really bad injury while on the job. It was actually a gunshot wound that actually went through the back of his head, and he magically survived. I think it was 22 rounds, what he told me. And he patrolled the west side, and he claimed that the west side of Chicago was actually way worse than the south side. Normally, when they bring up the city of Chicago, they normally bring up the south side, and that's about it. But, of course, the west side is actually a little bit worse, according to what he told me. You could actually go to channels like, say, Hood Time, or you just type in Chicago Hoods, and you'll get a lot of videos on the actual neighborhoods themselves in Chicago, and, of course, Philadelphia and a lot of the other cities in the United States. I mean, hell, even my home state, North Carolina, has got some very, very bad hoods. These places obviously need to be cleaned up. And you've also got, I think it was a Kensington out there in Philadelphia. It looks like an actual episode of The Walking Dead. It's absolutely insane what the hell's happening. A lot of this is the actual culture itself that's around the city of Chicago. You know, you get into conversations with the people on the left, and of course, there are a lot of them that have been floating around where they sit there and say, well, we need to be more like Scandinavia. We need to be more like Norway or Sweden. You know, when man is left in their natural state and they've got no actual laws or anything governing them, they tend to behave a lot better. That right there is the biggest load of crap that actually exists, because obviously Norway and Sweden is not the city of Chicago. It's not the city of Philadelphia. It's not the city of New York. These people don't live in the same reality that me and you who are actually listening, or me actually talking to you guys listening to this or watching it, have to live in every single day. The cultures are obviously a little bit different. That right there is the real truth of the situation. It's something that, quite frankly, these people just refuse to accept. And, of course, when you hear a police officer say, look, you know, I got 3 daughters myself, and this is heartbreaking to hear, there's obviously some type of parent-to-parent component there. But, of course, there has been an update in this case that we'll get to here in a little bit. The fact of the matter is that the governance over the city of Chicago is just absolutely horrible, and it's been horrible for a very long time. And we can get into the reasons why that's the case in the future videos. But seeing how it is that I've been talking a lot about the migrant crisis, and now you see this, it only begs people to wonder if things are going to get better in that city. And also, not to mention the fact that the mayor himself is trying to get rid of ShotSpotter technology, which, by the way, would actually aid in catching the people who are actually doing the shootings. But let's continue.
The only victim this holiday weekend. Saturday, at least 11 people were shot across the city. On Sunday, that number rose to 18, including this incident on the south side, in which 3 people were shot, one of whom, a 35-year-old, died from his injuries. Today, there were 3 shootings before 9 a.m. One of those was on the 1400 block of South Sacramento in North Lawndale. A man there was hit multiple times and later passed away. Another shooting happened on the 8000 block of South Stewart and also claimed the life of a 43-year-old man. Now, CPD usually updates their crime statistics on a Monday. We won't get those till tomorrow due to the holiday, but as things stand at the moment, shootings have dropped by 8% on last year's numbers. Homicide is down 17%, and crime overall has decreased by 12%. We're live at 35th in Michigan. Bronagh Tumulty.
Okay, so they're saying that overall shootings are down. Well, here's the thing. When you remove ShotSpotter technology and you've been removing it all across the city, it's a little bit hard to detect that. You see, a lot of times they get those numbers based upon the statistics after the crime has been committed or the shooting has been done. And so far, they're saying it's been down from the previous year. There's a lot to get into when it comes to crime statistics. However, it doesn't really change the situation. Obviously, there is a problem in the city of Chicago. However, there has been an update, and of course, reward money has been tossed out there or has been offered for anybody who has any information. But let me go ahead and roll this for you.
Difficult to hear the pain in their voices, also their frustration that this kind of thing just keeps happening all around the city. The mother of 5-year-old Rain Ware says the little girl loved pizza, pasta, school, and unicorns. But she was shot early Sunday morning sitting in a car on the near west side. A 27-year-old man who we're told was no relation was also hit. Police say those shots were fired from a Jeep Cherokee. Ware's mother, grandmother, and sister all shared their grief and called on the entire city to help stop the bloodshed.
She was just a very happy kid. Like, she brought life to our life, to outsiders' life, to everybody that met her.
We need the mayor, we need the alderman, we need you guys to really step up and stop the violence. We need mothers and grandmothers and everybody to take accountability for where your kids are and what they're doing, what guns they have. We need you to pay attention. Somebody have to do something. We need this to stop today. This just can't keep happening. We can't keep hurting each other.
The family is calling on the shooter to turn themselves in. Tonight at 7 p.m. at the site of the shooting, Jackson and Campbell, there will be a vigil for the little girl. Also, there's a $2,000 reward being offered for any information about the shooter. Back to you in the studio.
Obviously, people in Chicago are upset. I don't blame this lady at all. She just lost her daughter, just lost her child. The crap's got to stop. Okay, you got little kids getting killed, and a lot of times, a lot of these little kids are just getting caught in the crossfire. In some cases, they're actually being targeted because criminals, quite frankly, don't care who the hell they hit. I mean, the whole notion of there's a good criminal out there, that these people are little Aladdins or whatnot, that was just a bunch of crap that's completely bunk. Then you talk about little kids getting killed. 24-year-old guy just sitting outside of his house, and he was actually talking to a guy who was like 27 who also got hit in the process as well. I'm pretty sure the father, by the way, got up this morning thinking about the situation, knowing that he had lost his daughter. And he's probably screaming to himself, why wasn't it me who died? Why is my daughter gone? It's not just the extremely high abortion rate that's killing the black population. It's not just the economy that's killing the black population. It's not just the migrant population that's doing it too. It's this type of crime, of course. And if you look at the actual numbers, what do you see? 13% of the population, 57% of the crime, highest murder rate, highest violent crime in the country. Of course, the actual figures themselves have actually dropped to 11% because this crap's been going on for a while. It's a race that, quite frankly, is absolutely eradicating itself from the planet through its own very, very bad culture. Now, who the hell do you want to blame for this? Well, really, to tell you the truth, it's the overall leadership that's in charge. And I know that this video is probably going to get limited ads just from me saying what it is, but me being from the South and being around people of color all the time, it really hurts me. It really actually bothers me that one entire race is being systematically wiped out by itself because of Democrat Party politicians. Of course, they go on top of this. The Republican Party just now got this ball game very, very late because Republicans once again felt that, look, we can't get this vote. They historically vote Democrat. Well, that is true. They vote Democrat at a much, much higher clip. However, there has been an awakening in that community, mostly due to the migrant crisis, that's sending them over to the former president. But there's another video altogether. The fact of the matter is that people are getting tired of this. People are starting to expect this right here is kind of normal. And while it is becoming more and more normalized, that's not good either, which is another conversation to have for another day. But speaking of that mayor, Brandon Johnson, let's get to what his actual solution to all this is, because obviously the national news did pick up on the story.
More than 24 people were hurt and nearly 10 people killed in shootings over the holiday weekend. The violence putting the city's summer safety plan to the test. It includes an increase in patrols downtown and at local beaches. The city is also offering hundreds of jobs and activities for kids, as Mayor Brandon Johnson criticizes the previous administrations for what he calls a lack of investing in youth. He believes progressive leadership will help build the city up.
Administration after administration has shut down public schools, public housing, eroded our transportation system, raided our pensions. We are also piloting a new program, a partnership with DFSS and Good Kids Mad City, to employ and train 100 youth peacekeepers who are not only working to stay safe, but they are working to engage other young people to make sure that they're safe.
The plan also intends to address violence by identifying its root causes. And Chicago police will be canceling some officers' days off this summer, but they say they'll do so within reason.
This to me is kind of rich coming from him because, yes, Lori Lightfoot sucked. She was horrible. Yes, Rahm Emanuel was bad too. And yes, the previous mayor was not as too much better. Chicago has always voted Democrat, so it doesn't really surprise me that you have another Democrat mayor blaming mayors before him. But the thing is, this right here, this is the same mayor that since he's been in power has went out of his way to really make the situation a lot worse. Okay, I just mentioned ShotSpotter technology. The reason why you need that technology in place is so that way you can eventually go investigate a scene, say the day after, even if nobody did get hurt or whatnot, and eventually helps you lead to the actual shooter themselves. So you kind of might want to have that technology there in some of these neighborhoods. You've also got a guy who at one point in time was very, very pro the migrants coming in, and now he doesn't know exactly which way to go. It also came out recently that he was having anxiety attacks. It also came out that, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot, back in 2020, all through the riots and COVID in 2020, and of course, the flash mob riots they had back in the summer of 2023, this guy also sided with the riots, claiming that these kids were hungry, and now he wants to let the youth of Chicago take care of the problem, but yet they got no weapons to help take care of it. Now, I understand youth outreach. I'm all in favor of that, and I think that young people should be properly coached. But do you honestly expect the criminals, the people who live in this society, do you honestly expect them to respect them kids? I mean, you might be able to get the little children, which is obviously the most important thing. I think the children need to be protected more than anything because they, quite frankly, are our future. But the little thugs and whatnot out there who are actually doing drive-bys and crap, they need to be locked up. And, of course, Mayor Brandon Johnson doesn't want to do that. So it makes me almost wonder why it is he's even ramping up extra patrols. But the one thing that I do want to say about what was said right there at the very end was how it was that lady pointed out the fact that police officers are going to be getting less days off within reason. You're probably thinking that due to the nature of Chicago, due to all the shootings, that maybe cops should, I don't know, maybe cops should be on the street a lot more. My response to that is this right here. When you defund your police department, when you cut police and police resources, guess what happens? Cops then become overworked. And of course, a lot of these police officers have, in fact, been overworked. They're working double and triple shifts. They're not getting any sleep. So obviously their judgment's going to be pretty bad. What do you think is going to happen when their judgment is completely off and somebody gets shot or somebody gets killed that, quite frankly, shouldn't have gotten killed by, say, a police officer? Incidents are going to mount. Next thing you know, the public is going to be anti-police again, like they already are. And next thing you know, nothing's going to get done. And once again, the cops are going to become the scapegoat. It seems to me like maybe this right here, I don't think it's an intentional attempt. Of course, it was Lori Lightfoot in office. I would say it would be an intentional attempt because that's how evil she was. I mean, Master Splinter looked pretty daggone bad. And of course, she was a pretty daggone evil person. In the case of Mayor Brandon Johnson, I believe him being a true believer and trying to act like he's all positive and whatnot, and judging by the fact that he's had so many heart issues or heart-related issues dealing with the stress of being the mayor of Chicago, it seems to me like he thinks this right here is the route to go, but it's actually utter incompetence. The cops need to be arrested. If anything, even with a low force the way it is, what you need to be doing is, I don't know, maybe bringing in more of your part-time guys and maybe elevating them to full-time. Maybe what you should be doing is getting these people back on set shifts. Maybe you could lower the hours to get them some additional time. But of course, make up for the hours in different areas. Maybe instead of doing 12 on, 12 off, maybe what you should do is, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 10-day shifts instead. Get these guys a little bit more sleep, a little more rest. Find a way to actually improve their judgment. I think that if you do this right here with telling these officers they can't have a day off, you're bound to see some judgments getting a lot worse. But that right there also brings me to the last issue about culture, and it also brings me to the actual laws in Chicago itself. I just got through mentioning the cops and the hours and whatnot. You know, I think in the city of Chicago, I know this right here may sound a little bit hypocritical, especially given that, of course, this right here is shootings, but I did tell you, and I've said this right in previous videos, that I am very, very pro-Second Amendment. Chicago's got the strictest gun laws of any of the big 3 cities in the country, that right there being New York, Los Angeles, and of course also Chicago itself. We're also not factoring in Houston, St. Louis, which is not one of the top 10 cities in the country as far as size is concerned, or New Orleans, but of course there's also Philadelphia and all those other cities like San Francisco and Minneapolis that have got extremely strict gun laws, Boston in particular. What I was going to say was this right here. You've got police departments, and these police departments, these precincts are everywhere. You got stock weapons, stock shotguns, you got stock pistols, whatever. I mean, extra stuff. Why don't you, I don't know, maybe distribute it to some of the most responsible people in the neighborhood, so that way these people can create their own little neighborhood watch, or do like they did back in Connecticut a while back, when you actually had people proactively going out of their way to cut crime within their actual community. If you actually did that, or at least gave people the ability to defend themselves, then guess what? These shootings would probably be fewer and far between. The overall crime rate would go down. I know that lady said that the crime was down a little bit, or the shootings were down, but still at the same time, it's obviously a problem. It's quite frankly pretty daggone pervasive. 39 shot, and that right there is just the numbers that are coming out right now. And of course, this video is being released on Wednesday, not on Tuesday. Fact of the matter is, if you actually begin to start changing the culture and bring back some form of accountability, this issue will eventually take care of itself. But you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. With that right there being said, please hit the like button, subscribe, please comment on the video, and I'll see you guys later.